Hi guys, welcome back to drumhead.com. As you can see, myself, Steve and Mike all together, and we're going to have a chat about anything drum related. Absolutely anything at all that we think that we might find interesting to you. Yeah, we're going to have a chat about it.
And what we'd like to do as well is, if you watch this and you hear something that we're talking about, it'd be great if you send in comments, ask us questions about anything, because this is the first of these chats. We're going to do a series of them and hopefully delve into quite a few different areas. So we'd love to hear back from you, to know where to go, really.
Feedback.
Feedback is good. Absolutely. So where should we start, guys? What do you want to talk about?
I think we're all looking forward to getting back to gigging now, though, don't you?
God, yeah.
Is that definitely the case?
Yeah.
Just being able to open up and play when we want to, whatever level, just to hear the rest of the band around us, A-bands, jamming, blues, and go and see some music. So that's where we're at, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like you said in one of the lessons we were filming earlier today, now's the time to think about not just being on the pad, although we've got pads here, but think about where we take everything that we've practiced back to that band situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can very easily, and particularly if you're a really a good drummer, you can get to a great level, and then suddenly you've got all these things you've learned, and then you hit the band again, the rehearsal room, and say you've got the guitarist that's doing the same, the bass player, and everyone goes, "Wow, I've learned all this stuff," and I can imagine it could be just a massive mess if you're not careful. Because you've got to get back to the important thing, which is playing for the music, obviously, which everyone says, but it is the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think one thing that people need to be aware of is that they have to maintain the stamina and the speed and the things ready to play. So that's something that I think you talk about as well, Steve, a lot. That you've got to, if you get your hands to a certain speed, you've got to keep them at that speed to maintain it. Otherwise, they're just going to get slow. You'll notice it yourself if you go on holiday for a few weeks and come back. You go,
what's this?
What do I do with these again? and you've got to maintain that. And I think guys out there, you've got to be aware of a routine of maintenance practice, so that when we can eventually get back out into the big bad world, we are ready for it, and we don't play a couple of songs. I know, like Mike, you did a streamed gig the other week, didn't you?
Yeah, we
said you played for a couple.
Well, we managed to do a bit of rehearsal because we got some tests and we made sure we were all safe, which is really important. I have to say that. But being in the studio together was great. So we've done, whereas a normal year we'd do God knows how many gigs. This last year we did one stream gig in, I can't remember when it was, September, October, and then we did one a few weeks ago. And it was great, just being in the same room as the rest of the guys and playing and just enjoying playing with people. Yeah, that's the thing, because I'm very much, I grew up just playing in bands, really. And I keep saying to a lot of my students, and that's why I say it, I did not spend the time like you two guys did, sort of growing up, learning all the rudiments and diving into it. For some reason, I just found it far too much hard work. So I got to the point where I could play pretty easily and pretty well, and then got into bands, and then found, booze and women. And, no, I was only joking. But I enjoyed the experience of playing more than practicing, and it was, in hindsight, a really bad thing, because I got to probably our third album in, and Rich came to see us at one gig, and I'd been to a few sort of drum teachers to work out why I couldn't do what John Bonham did and all these drummers, and it was because I hadn't spent the time when I was young doing it, and I had to go back and spend a couple of years just doing the basics that a lot of people knew. And I mean, Rich will tell you, I came to his studio one time for one of the first lessons, and literally, bearing in mind we'd had 3 albums out, etc., and we worked on a paradiddle, and I was literally probably not much faster than that, and I had to go back and relearn the whole lot at age 30 plus. It was insane. So all you out there, take heed. It's a lot easier to learn these things when you're younger, isn't it?
I think so. And I mean, you're saying, a lot of the things that I learned, because I was so obsessed with it, and there wasn't much going on, which I do kind of, the the fact that we had so much more time. We were time richer, I think, when I grew up. You know, so the practice pad was like a friend, because there was, you know, your parents were not like, oh, so you're going to go on, you know, PlayStation or Netflix, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that. It was like, you know, get on your practice pad because I'm doing the tea. So you got on your practice pad, and I loved it. But I'm very, very aware that there's, you know, and I don't want to see this skill set that is required of the absolute sort of, you know, level of skill that you have to play in a band. You know, it is, you know, about less is more. It's about understanding what the writers, or if you are part of the writing, you know, what it's all about, what you're trying to say. I mean, and that does stretch a lot further than just paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. That's being a musician. And I mean, I think in the past year, we've had no choice. There's been, you know, probably less music played in the last year in a public environment than probably for 400 or 500 years. You know, there's nothing been going on. And I think that's incredible. And obviously musicians are interested in still playing. And I've seen a lot of kind of online developments, like things that are, but most of them are technical challenges. And, you know, that's great and it's fun. But when we get back into playing again, you've got to start to reacquaint yourself with the things that really matter, and that's playing a good tempo, playing with a good feel, and just being a contributor to the music, and not sort of looking down every time. Worrying about that all the time, you know. So there is those two elements.
Absolutely, and I think one thing I was thinking on my way over today was, well, I've said before, I saw you play a lot with Paul Weller back in the 90s, and listening to the way you put your parts together, and I was listening to them the other day just to sort of reacquaint myself. You kind of have this way of playing for the song, and a lot of it sounding quite simple, but having just this great groove that just, it sits there. But then some of the time you'll think it's quite simple, and you listen to it and there are bits in there that are quite tricky, you know, but you play them with finesse and with the groove to make it just sit underneath so it doesn't poke out.
I was just going to say, so some of your parts that you played with Star Council Bonus are really simple till you try and play it.
That was. I mean, one of the things you were doing earlier in one of the other lessons, which was the introduction to Second Line, which you'll be able to see, talking about. I've forgotten the name of the track.
All the pictures on the wall.
Yeah, all the pictures on the wall. Yeah. That groove.
It's quite hard.
It's quite. You know, you listen to it and you think this works perfectly. It grooves along. Then you sit down and do it, and you're like.
No, it's actually I mean, I was incredibly lucky, and I think I did have a tremendous empathy to understand, you know, what was required for the song, and obviously, you know, Paul had a huge amount of I like that, that's good, I've got an idea. I mean, I remember playing on Broken Stones, and he just said, I just want you to do this, and that was it. It was like, and I'm not going to argue, that's what he wants to do. But there were other things where I was able to really try stuff, you know, and try and be really really creative, but always with the idea of supporting the song. You know, and I think the things that, you know, are practiced that really kind of came into their own is that basic sort of technique, that just that constant sort of the doubles and paradiddles, and you know, the pad is your friend, our power, you know, pad crunching, whatever you like to call it. That was really, really important to maintain a general sort of level of fitness. But other things that were really important that I felt were things like subdivisions, making sure that, you know, if you were playing something like Changing Man, which the and then the roll is a 30-second note roll. So if that's not tight as it possibly can be in a pop song like that, it's going to sound out of place,
and it's going to pop out as well
in the wrong way.
Absolutely, because that is another one that at the time when that album came out, and I listened to it, and the groove is that really simple.
It's just simple.
But then when it comes to that, unless you've got those doubles nailed down,
absolutely,
it just sounds like a
and I've seen drummers do it, and they kind of get to that point where, you know, and it's like, the timing goes, and it's like, and I'm happy to explain it. Well, look, what it is it's a 30-second note roll that corresponds to the quarter note.
You literally
Yeah, and
you
it
play
has
on the top. Yeah, it's
it
got
has
to have that. Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really important thing to be in control of as a drummer is subdivisions, especially in pop music, because so much of pop music in Western pop music is around 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which goes back to African music once again. But then you've got your subdivisions. If you're playing at sort of that kind of tempo, you can play a fill at or but then you're kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
So you don't have a huge palette.
Yeah.
So if you are confident in being able to move between subdivisions while playing a song very, very easily, then that subdivision as a triplet thing could be between bass drum and the toms. So it becomes more creative. And that was a skill that I really felt was very, very helpful in terms of creating a career playing pop music.
Because there's only so many things at the end of the day that we can actually play anyway.
Yeah.
There's only quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets. Everything's kind of been played already.
Yeah.
It's about how creative we get with what we have.
Yeah, totally.
And how deep we take a dive into what we can actually do with a paradiddle.
Yeah.
Because a paradiddle's not just...
Absolutely.
It's whatever you want it to be, depending on how you voice it, how you phrase it, what subdivision of note you put it into. It's still a paradiddle.
Yeah, and I think I did a little exercise where I worked out that with the three main paradiddles that I use, single paradiddle, inverted paradiddle, and reverse paradiddle, there's something like if you orchestrate them with going from playing accents. And orchestrate those accents around the drums and do that with paradiddle, inverted and reverse paradiddle, there's 17 completely unique little patterns that you can use.
Yeah.
And then if you go into subdivisions, so you're going from, say, 16th notes, and do it all again. There's hundreds and hundreds of combinations out of a simple paradiddle sequence, and that's great. That's where it becomes really interesting. One of the drummers that I've been listening to a lot during our sort of time at home is Mitch Mitchell, and what he does with Jimi Hendrix is absolutely fantastic, because a lot of the stuff is kind of mid-tempo. And he's kind of coming in with these, but they're beautifully timed, and that's so you don't feel like he's rushing. You don't feel like it feels like a butterfly. And that's what I think. So subdivisions, stamina, not being too ego trippy about your own sort of thing, and that's what we're going to have to be a bit careful as we come out of this. Is that we've all been a little bit insular, So we've got to start pushing out again and listening to what other people have to say.
That's it.
And writing some great new songs.
And I think we've got to think about the going back even further than the paradiddle singles doubles, the relationship between your hand and the stick. And trying to get back to that point where that's doing the work and you're not doing it. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you must see it as well. I see it all the time, I can't Rich, I need some lessons, right? Okay, what are we doing? Well, I can't play any faster than 130 beats a minute, and it's like, show me. It's like, you're never going to be able to do it.
No.
Because you're doing everything there, you've locked everything here, and you're playing from here, and it's never going to happen.
No. I do think that, we all have kind of things that our bodies, because that's the thing, that we're all completely different. We're all made up completely differently. Our hand muscles and shoulder muscles and all the components that go to make you a person will come out in your drumming. And I always found, I watched a video of Louis Belson the other night playing that Pete Cater kindly shared, and Louis doing this like single stroke, which was absolutely phenomenal, and the control, I don't think I could do that in a concert setting. It's just too amazing. But I found that as I was creatively, that things like compound stick-ins, I found those easier. than playing lots of singles. So rather than like worrying too much about what I can't do, I kind of thought, well, I'll develop what I can do. Just play to your strengths, because we're not all going to be able to, you know, to do a big kind of Aaron Spears sweep around backwards and forwards, because we're not built like that, you know. So I think, you know, rather than keep going up the rabbit hole of like, I can't do that, you know, think, well, my doubles are really nice, so I've got really nice doubles are good, so what about if I subdivide the doubles? Well, that sounds nice, you know. And you've got different.
I think if everybody thinks about it, they've got that thing. That. You know, honestly, we kind of play it probably too much sometimes. It's like Keith Carlock's thing, isn't it? You know, it is that Keith Carlock's got the fill, hasn't he? Everybody goes, that's a Keith Carlock fill. But it's one of those, you know. And I it's the same thing with me. I mean, I play 5 strokes. A lot. Probably too much. But then I invert them, so I put the tap at the beginning. And then you get the. You get that sort of thing, and then you know you find yourself in a big band saying,
"It's great.
I've got the 2-bar break.
It's great
because I'm just going to play what I always play."
Well, I mean, because you know, unless you get even with like watching sort of maestros like Louis Belson, I mean, they would generally get one big solo per night, which is 7-8 minutes or whatever. And, you know, I mean, in all honesty, even though drumming has been, you know, a consistent part of my life for God knows how long, you know, drum solos are a pretty hard thing to get across to a regular audience. You know, you've got to
do it musically, haven't you? Because you know, as we were saying earlier, the drum solo can. Well, everyone said this. It can be the time when you
toilet time
nims the loo. So, you know, keeping it going. And I like, you know, when I saw you playing a lot in the 90s again, when you did the sort of solos, it was kind of very musical. And I actually looked around at the time, and it wasn't that, you know, people were staying and watching it. So whatever you did, I don't know who it was, but it kind of...
I think in that, I saw Steve Smith do a wonderful clinic in Manchester in February last year, and he was talking about, you know, playing for different situations. And there's, you know, there's absolutely, if you're playing to MEN or somewhere like that, there's no point kind of... because it's not going to get heard. You know, you've got to open up the technique. You know, you've got to kind of dig in, because you've got to go through the mics and the processing, and you've got to get that sound out, and you've got to project. And Steve said something which was really interesting about soloing, which I completely agree with, is that whenever I got to do a solo, because I was very aware that it was a pop setting, it's a pop gig. You know, there's a lot of couples that want to hear you do something to me, and you know, and or whatever we were doing. They're not here to hear a drum solo. So what I was really aware of, and Steve said exactly the same thing, which was lovely to hear, is that you just keep a pulse going through it. So whether it's, you know, I remember seeing a drum solo many years ago by Peter Criss, who played with Kiss. And he just went down and he was at... And it was like Gene Krupa. It was like,
it's like sing, sing, sing.
But on the floor toms, on those toms, for a massive PA, it sounds great. And you're boom, boom, the bass drum. You know,
it's like we've talked about this before. One of the person that produced 2 of our albums, Youth, and they always used to say about us. He used to say, you know, you've got these quite slow songs, these big anthems. You know, don't put any big fast fills in there, because basically what people want to hit, they want to feel it. So if you're in a big stadium, you go da dam da dam da dam da dam. You know, people are going to go, oh and you get that feeling. Whereas if you kind of, you know, putting all little intricacies. Just goes over people's heads. Pointless. So you play for your setting, don't you? Really?
I mean, I play. You know, I think you do as well. I play a million ghost notes in groove, because it makes it feel better. And then you'll record something, you'll send it off to somebody, you'll get it back, and then you can't hear any of those ghost notes anymore because they've just been lost in the
process.
It felt great when I played them, but they're not there anymore.
As long as they become part of the texture of the groove. But I read, you know, Phil Gould talking in this month's Rhythm magazine, and he was saying about, you know, playing with Mark King in Level 42. It was really hard to get like ghost notes in, because it was just got to kind of lay it down, you know.
Because there's no space for because the bass is
Yeah.
He plays bass like a drummer, though, doesn't he? To be honest.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it is. And if you do, you know, if you go and see sort of a really intricate sort of, you know, in a, you're not going to be able to do that in a massive gig without it. What's happened? So it is horses for courses, and getting your kind of technique back into shape for any kind of gig is something that's, you know, I think we're all going to have a little think about, and you know, it's going to be an interesting few months as we all get back to rehearsing.
Oh, definitely. I'll say we did those couple of lockdown shows, and it took a while, you know, to get into it. But interesting enough, when you were talking then about sort of the ghost note side of things, because it's the way I kind of describe them. The ghost notes are like another instrument, like the percussion behind you. You're playing the percussion and the beat as well, if you like. It's kind of a dual purpose. So you might not necessarily hear all those ghost notes in a recording, but they're there just
texture
and kind of driving it behind it.
And they're potentially moving the space of the notes that you're putting them in between ever so slightly to improve the feel of it. Because there's less space to, you know. So they make, to me, they make a huge difference. Whether you hear them or not, they make a massive difference. But you are, like you said, you're not going to hear them if you're playing the MEN in Manchester. They're not going to be there.
But also, I think just talking about sort of playing for the song, one thing that I struggled with when I first embraced, actually sort of moved away from this kind of gothy direction that we were, that no one ever heard because it wasn't recorded or released, and we kind of went to the more sort of solid ballad types and things. And Danny and Rick in the band were saying, just getting the nice simple grooves. And at first, because I'd been in a band before that, there was like a funk. It was like a funk rock band with a French Elvis singing. It was great.
Sounds great.
He got deported. But we kind of I had to learn to enjoy playing simple grooves. And the way I did that was by just kind of really kind of losing myself in them and trying to get them to make people sort of tap the feet. It's something. It's that thing of when you hear a great drummer, you naturally can't. You're just moving, aren't you?
Absolutely.
You hear it, and when you hear a bad drummer, know, it doesn't matter if you're a drummer watching a drummer. The audience, if they get it right, even if they don't play any instruments, it'll make them move, won't it?
Absolutely.
And it's how you get from just playing and make that breathe, and that's. I don't know, there's something there that's indefinable almost of how you do that. So what are your sort of thoughts on how you do get...
A friend of mine that I worked with many, many years ago when I did a musical with Glenn Tilbrook and Chris Difford called Labelled With Love. And on playing bass was a musician that's very, very well known in South Africa. His name's Louis Malhanga. And he's originally from Zimbabwe, but he lives in South Africa now, and he's got some great stuff on Spotify. And he was the bass player on the gig, although he was a brilliant guitarist, very George Benson-esque. And Louis, I remember him saying to me, because I was very, very sort of impetuous and wanted to get as many notes in as possible, and he said something that really, really stuck with me as a sort of 17-year-old kid, just before I joined the Style Council. And he said to me, Stephen, he said, just imagine what it would be like to have to listen to you play the drums. And I thought, oh, hang on. He said, so, would you be able to dance to it? Would you get what you're trying to say with a song? And it was like, it really was very, very profound. It's like, so, and I do think about that. You're thinking like, well, if I was to listen to this and I was kind of with my partner, with boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and I kind of came to watch this gig and, it's kind of dropping down to the drums and the bass, and is this going to move them? So that has always encouraged me to think musically, to try to think as musically as possible. And it is a really good thing to think about, like, when you're whizzing around at 400 miles an hour thinking, what would an audience make of this? And it's, fusion and progressive music, the more notes the better, and some phenomenal musicians in that field. But just from the field that I come from, it's like, that's a really good point. What would I be able to move if I was listening to the, so then you can zone in to like playing a song that I used to play with Paul called Out the Sinking, it's really simple, on floor tom on the right hand, and then open hi-hat, and I thought that was like a breath, you know. And I used to really dig into that. And you're talking about simplicity.
Yeah.
And I used to love playing that one because I could feel it through a big PA, you know, and you knew the weight was there.
Yeah.
And you know, locked in with Damon or Yolanda, and you know, you could really feel it pumping. And that always felt really great to do. It's not technically, you know, crazy, but it felt really, really great to do, and that was a real measure for me. And you know, there were so many great songs to play along to in terms of you know, feel. But that was always such a leveler for me. It was like, what would it be like to have to listen to me play?
Yeah.
You know.
That's actually,
It's really good.
I mean, before. That's a really good one.
I'm a kind of probably a bit of a crass Yorkshireman, really. I often say to my students, "Would you want to be in a band with you?"
Yeah.
Both from a personality point of view, you know, would you want to spend some time on a bus with you?
Yeah.
And would you want to be in a band with a drummer that's playing like you do? And honestly, most of them say no. But it's a massive turning point for them to think, oh, hold on a minute. Yeah, I need to look at this. Yeah. So is that obviously you've had a lot of advice over a lot of years of playing. Is that the best advice you've ever been given, or is there too much to talk about?
You know what? It's definitely one of the most profound. You know, really, in terms of musical success, of getting called back and continuing to work for you know, 40 years, it's definitely up there. I mean, you know, there were things that Bob Armstrong used to say, and you know, just when your confidence was low, and you know, at a certain point, I was not playing the bass drum loud enough when I first joined the Style Council, because I was playing gigs where it was all flat-footed, and you know, and I remember being at the Manchester Apollo, I think it was, and Paul saying, you've got to get a bit more weight in that bass drum, as we're going to have to get somebody else. And it doesn't get any starker. It does not get any starker than that. You know, so I went back to see Bob, and you know, and he was like, look, you know, it's if you're going to do this, it's time for heel up. You know, you've got to get the heel up. And I sat there literally, and it felt terrible because I was so used to flat-footed. And you know, I did it. So you know, I went back. We had a little break, and went back into rehearsal, and we were playing, you know, Speak Like a Child or whatever. And it's got 4 on the floor bass drum, and I was like, right, stop. And they looked round, and it was like, you know, so that was good. But getting back to what you say, I think it's really important. I mean, I remember a dear friend of mine. I can't name names, but he got an audition for a really you know, very renowned band in London. I'm just being careful. And when he went for the audition, and he's open that he's you know, he's a basic rock drummer, not flash. And when he got to the audition, the kit was a very, very well-known drummer, and he was like, oh God, you know. So they said like, right, well, you've got your list of tunes, let's do it. So he did the audition, and yeah, you're in. Great, it's great, you know. And then it basically transpired. He just said, like, why, you know, I can't play like him, sort of thing. And they said, well, but it doesn't matter because he's just so hard to get on with.
So it's a personality
and it was a personality thing. You know, so
absolutely. Because when you're travelling, as you well know in the band, you know, if you don't get on, we've all got stories, haven't we? You know, it's
not for now.
Not for now. But interesting.
For the X-rated version later on.
Interestingly enough, talking about crisis of confidence, and this is a killer. This has never been aired actually, but so not that our singer will ever watch this anyway. But basically, on our first album, I was really struggling. I had this real crisis of confidence in what I was doing, and I went to see him one night, and I said, look, I'm really, I don't know if I'm good enough for this, blah blah blah. And his words of wisdom that stick to me to this day were, Mike, don't worry, no one listens to the drummer. and he honestly thought he was helping me out, and I just walked out and went, and it was just like, which is obviously not very good advice.
It's an interesting thing because you know, I wonder how many drummers actually ask their singers, or you know, what are you listening to at the moment? You know, what music are you getting into? What, you know, I remember I would always try and ask Paul what are the lyrics about, or try and work out what the lyrics were about, you know, for myself, so I could try and interpret it musically, you know, And I mean, sometimes it's a good thing to just say, right, let's just put some tunes on, you know, what we're listening to, that, you know, to sort of reacquaint. Because you're right. I mean, I've spoken to a number of, you know, singers and writers, and they don't look at the drums in the way that we look at them. You know, oh, look at my new snare drum. It's like, you know, some, not all, but some, some. You know, it's like, look, just play the part, just play very simply, you know. And and there's so many great drummers, especially from Britain, that, you know, that play the part beautifully. You know, I was listening last night to Judy Zook, "Stay With Me Till Dawn," which is such a beautifully produced record. Peter Van Hook, you know, just really simple. But when those drums come in, it's absolutely brilliant. We've got so many great players like that in this country, people like Dave Mattox, and, you know, we know about all the sort of the you know, the gods, but it's the guys. Well, Dave Mattox is a god. He's played on so much stuff, but they're not drummers that are known for soloing, and, you know, they're drummers that contribute to the song, you know, and that is an art in itself. Clem Catini and, you know, Brian Bennett, you know, these such musical drummers.
No, absolutely. So some wise words there.
Oh yeah, I think you've got to, you know, I mean, I personally, I can remember two things. There's loads, but there's two things that really stick out to me. One's from Dom, and one's from you, that you said to me years ago, right? And I'll talk to you. I'll talk about your second. Dom said to me, "This is the point when I was wanting to turn pro and do all this stuff, but I still had a day job." And he just simply said to me, "If you create a vacuum, something will fill it." Meaning that if I binned the day job, which I'm not saying binned the day job, I'd been working at it part-time for a long time, okay, so I was doing both and getting to the point where something had to give. And I was panicking over the thought, and I literally lost kind of 40 hours a week of paid work from a 9-to-5 job. And all of a sudden, I didn't have enough time to do the drumming thing because that 40 hours got filled immediately. And that bit of advice there has always stuck with me. And then the other thing, which I don't even know when this was, Steve, this is probably 2008, 2007, 2008, something like that. And you said to me, "Never take business on stage."
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, it's true.
And it's not even a sentence. It's not even a sentence long. And you said to me, "Never take business on stage." And I was like, oh, okay. So when you get into those things of like, well, the money's not being paid, or the contract's not, no, it stays over there. And then that you get on the kit and you do your thing, and then you pick it up again when you leave the stage. And that was. I didn't know you very well at that point, but that was that's just this one thing that stuck with me.
Well, I think in a band situation, it's never always plain sailing, is it? And there are always things that come up, you know, our business or personalities. And at some point, you do have to go on stage sometimes when you're just really pissed off with it.
You're right.
And it's just being able to switch off and just go and go, right,
enjoy the music.
This is what I'm going to do now.
Because on touring, you know, those it doesn't matter what country you're in or what hotel you're staying at or what the catering's like at the back. You know, you're there for that 2 and a bit hours to please that crowd, you know, and please yourself, obviously, and enjoy it. Which, you know, but it's focus. It's that focus. But you know, clearing your head. I mean, we've all probably been there. And listen, you know, I got paid to play the drums, and that's not digging the roads or looking after poorly people. You know, it really isn't. You know, what I consider. You know, I'm very, very lucky. But, you know, we've all been on stage. I found out to my sort of detriment the first time I was lucky enough to go to Japan that jet lag, when I got there, I stayed up all night going, this is absolutely brilliant. and then found out that about 6 o'clock in the evening, you get the most almighty crash of fitness. And it's like, what time are we on stage? 6 o'clock. No. So you'd literally be like, whoa, you know. But, you know, these things are, you just kind of, you deal with it. But, you know, we've all been on stage, like, as the great John Lord said, once you get on stage, Dr. Music will take care of it.
We had it once when we flew out to LA and we went straight to the gig and we, you know, had a few drinks on. We got there and we were doing the sound check and we were like, "Where's Steve?" our bass player, and he'd just fallen asleep on the stage, lying on the stage. It happened to once by the drum tech. I turned around once and he was just asleep. I mean, next to the drums. It's like, but yeah, it's different. Yeah, different ways of coping.
Good stuff.
But yeah, but that's great. So I think we're going to carry on this series, and whenever we get together, because this is kind of an introduction to the team as well. Now Steve's joined us, which is brilliant. We've already filmed some amazing content today. We'll carry on these chats, but like I said at the beginning, please comment, please ask questions, because between us, we've got over 100 years of experience of drumming, which makes us feel really old. But it's true. So there's a lot of experience in many different areas. So, send us some questions in. Let's have a discussion about what you want to hear about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. Thanks for watching, guys. As again, if you're liking them, just please remember, like, subscribe, so you can keep up to date with everything that we're putting out. And from us three, take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.